Part 1, Chapter 1. Are there spirits? 1. The cause of doubt regarding the existence of spirits is due primarily to ignorance of their true nature. Spirits are usually imagined to have been created as a separate class of beings whose existence has not yet been proven. Many persons are only familiar with spirits because of the fantastic stories they heard as children, which would be like trying to know someone's life history by reading a novel. Apart from the absurdities that upset them, they do not try to find out if these stories, if divested of nonsensical accessories, might have some basis in truth. They do not want to put forth the effort to remove the bitter shell of the nut in order to get at the kernel inside. Therefore, they reject the whole, as do those involved in religion, who, upset by certain abuses, include the whole matter under one and the same condemnation. Whatever our idea about spirits may be, such belief is necessarily based on the existence of an intelligent principle apart from matter. This belief is incompatible with the complete denial of such a principle. Therefore, we take our departure from the existence, survival, and individuality of the soul, of which spiritualism offers us a dogmatic theoretical demonstration, while Spiritism offers a patent demonstration. For the moment, however, let us set aside spirit manifestations per se and reason by induction. Let us see what consequences may result. 2. If we believe in the existence of the soul and its continued individuality after death, we must also believe that, 1, its nature is different than that of the body, since once separated from the body, it can no longer retain its material properties. 2, it possesses its own consciousness because it is subject to happiness or suffering. Without consciousness, it would be an inert being, and thus its existence would be meaningless to us. If we believe this much, then it is obvious that the soul must go somewhere after death. But what becomes of it, and where, in fact, does it go? According to common belief, it either goes to heaven or to hell. But where are heaven and hell? It used to be said that heaven was up above and hell was down below. But where is up above and down below in the universe, since we know that the earth is round and that the heavenly bodies turn in such a way that for us, up above and down below are reversed every 12 hours, and that the infiniteness of outer space can be probed to incommensurable distances. It is true that we can understand low places to mean the depths of the earth, but what are such depths nowadays after they have been excavated by geology? Moreover, what should we understand by those concentric spheres called the heaven of fire and the heaven of stars, since we have learned that our planet is not the center of the universe, and that our own sun is only one among millions of other suns that shine in the infinite, each one being the center of its own planetary vortex? What has become of the importance of Earth now that it has been lost in the immensity of space? And by what unjustifiable privilege would this unperceivable grain of sand, distinguishable by neither its size nor its location, nor any particular role in the cosmos, be the only one inhabited by reasoning beings? Reason itself refuses to accept such a wastefulness of the infinite, and everything tells us that other worlds must also be inhabited. If they are inhabited, they too furnish their own contingents to the world of souls. Once again, however, what will have become of souls now that astronomy and geology have destroyed their assigned dwelling places, and especially after the rational theory of the plurality of inhabited worlds has multiplied them infinitely. And since there is no agreement between the doctrine concerning where the souls are located and the scientific data, we must accept a more logical doctrine, one that does not ascribe them to any particular circumscribed locale, but which locates them throughout universal space. They form an invisible world wherein we live, and which incessantly envelops and surrounds us. Is there anything impossible in this? Anything repugnant to reason? Absolutely nothing. Rather, everything tells us that it can be no other way. But what becomes of future punishment and reward if you remove the specified places where they occur? Notice that the notion of punishment and reward usually results in disbelief because it is presented under conditions that can no longer be accepted. Instead, we should state that souls derive their own happiness or misfortune from within themselves, that their fate depends on their moral condition, that the gathering together of good and attuned souls is a source of bliss, and that according to their degree of purity, they perceive and foresee things that are inaccessible to less evolved souls. Then everyone will understand the matter without much difficulty. Additionally, state that souls only reach the highest degree through the efforts they put forth to improve themselves and after having endured the necessary trials required for their purification. Moreover, state that angels are human souls who have reached the highest degree, that all souls will reach that degree if they so will, that the angels are God's messengers, charged with overseeing the execution of the divine plan all over the universe, that they are joyous at fulfilling such a glorious mission, and you will have given their blissful state a purpose that is more attractive than the perpetual uselessness of eternal contemplation. Finally, explain that demons are merely the souls of evil individuals who have not yet purified themselves, but who, like all others, may finally reach the state of purity, and such will seem more in harmony with the justice and benevolence of God than the doctrine of beings who were created for evil and who are irrevocably doomed to it. Once more, therein lies what the most demanding reason, the most rigorous logic, and common sense can accept. As we have seen, the souls that populate space are more precisely what we call spirits. Hence, spirits are merely human souls that have been freed of their corporeal envelope. If spirits were created as separate beings, their existence would be more hypothetical. However, in accepting the existence of souls, we must therefore accept the existence of spirits, who are nothing more than souls. And if we accept the fact that souls are everywhere, we must equally accept the fact that spirits are too. Thus, we cannot deny the existence of spirits without denying the existence of souls. 3. Of course, all this is no more than a theory that is more rational than any other, but it is a theory that contradicts neither reason nor science. Furthermore, it is corroborated by facts and is sanctioned by both logic and experience. And we have found these facts in the phenomena of spirit manifestations, which thus have provided us with patent proof of the existence and survival of the soul. Nevertheless, there are many people whose belief does not go beyond this point. They believe in the existence of souls and consequently in the existence of spirits, but they deny the possibility of communicating with them because they say immaterial beings cannot interact with matter. This doubt results from ignorance of the true nature of spirits, about which they generally have a wrong idea by considering them to be abstract, vague, and undefined beings, which is not true. Before going any further, let us consider the spirit in its union with the body. The spirit is the principal being of this union, for the spirit is the thinking being that survives death. The body is no more than an accessory for the spirit, an envelope, a garment that it abandons after having worn it. Besides this material envelope, the spirit possesses another, a semi-material envelope, which connects it to the first. At death, the spirit abandons the body, but not the second covering, which we call the perispirit. This semi-material envelope has a human form and comprises, for the spirit, a fluidic, vaporous body, which, although invisible to us in its normal state, still possesses some of the properties of matter. The spirit is therefore not a simple abstraction, but a confined and circumscribed being, which would only need to become visible and tangible in order to resemble human creatures. Why couldn't it interact with matter? Because of the fluidity of its body? But isn't it among the most rarefied fluids, such as electricity, for example, and those that we consider the most imponderable, that we encounter the most powerful motive forces? Can't imponderable light cause a chemical reaction in ponderable matter? We do not yet understand the inner nature of the perispirit, but we might imagine it as being comprised of electrical substance or some other kind of matter just as subtle. Then why couldn't it have the same properties as electricity when directed by the will? Or the existence of the soul and of God, the former deriving from the latter, comprises the foundation of the entire edifice of Spiritism. But before we can set forth any Spiritist argument, we must be sure that whomever we are discussing the matter with also accepts such a foundation. If we receive a negative response to the questions, do you believe in God? Do you believe you have a soul? Do you believe that the soul survives after death? Or if we receive the simple answer, I don't know, I would like to believe it, but I'm just not sure, which most of the time is the same as a timid denial disguised under a less categorical answer, so that it does not abruptly shock what he or she regards as respectable prejudices. And it would be useless to proceed. It would be like trying to demonstrate the properties of light to a blind person who does not believe in the existence of light. For spirit manifestations are in fact only effects of the properties of the soul. Thus, if we do not want to waste our time with our conversation partner, we will need to pursue another course of ideas. By accepting the basic principles, not only as a probability, but as a proven undeniable fact, then the existence of spirits will be a natural result. 5. We must still determine if spirits can communicate with humans, that is, if they can exchange thoughts with them. But why couldn't they? What is a human being except a spirit imprisoned in a physical body? Why couldn't a free spirit communicate with a captive spirit, just as a free human can communicate with a prisoner? If we believe in the survival of the soul after death, would it be rational to deny the survival of its affections? In other words, since souls are everywhere, wouldn't it be natural to believe that a being who had loved us during life could approach us, that it might want to communicate with us, and that it would utilize all the means at its disposal to do so? While it was living on earth, didn't it act upon the matter of its body? Wasn't it the person's soul who guided the movements of his or her body? Then why, after death, would it be prevented from expressing its thought in conjunction with another spirit who is still linked to a body, just as a mute uses a person who can speak in order to be understood. 6. Let us set aside for a moment the facts we consider to be incontestable. Let us believe in the communication with spirits as a simple hypothesis. Let us ask disbelievers to prove to us, not by simple negative statements, their personal opinion cannot be considered law, but through peremptory reasons that such communication is indeed impossible. Let us place ourselves on their turf. Since they want to observe spirit phenomena through physical laws, let them take some mathematical, physical, chemical, mechanical, or physiological proof from their scientific arsenal and demonstrate by A plus B, but always starting from the principle of the existence and survival of the soul. 1, that the being within us who thinks during earthly life no longer thinks after death. 2, that if it does think, it no longer thinks of those whom it has loved. 3, that if it does not think of those whom it has loved, it nonetheless does not wish to communicate with them. 4, that if it can be anywhere it wants to be, it cannot be right here beside us. 5, that if it is right here beside us, it nevertheless cannot communicate with us. 6, that by means of its fluidic body, it cannot act upon inert matter. 7, that if it can act upon inert matter, it nonetheless cannot act upon a living being. 8, that if it can act upon a living being, it cannot guide his or her hand in order to write. 9, that if it is able to thus write, it cannot respond to questions or transmit its thought. When Spiritism's adversaries demonstrate to us that none of this is possible, using reasons as obvious as those used by Galileo to prove that the sun does not spin around the earth, then we will admit that their doubts are well-founded. But until today, unfortunately, their entire argument may be summed up in these words: I do not believe in it, so it is impossible. Undoubtedly, they will retort that it is up to us to prove that the manifestations are real. However, we have already given them such proof, both through the phenomena and through reason. If they refuse either, and if they even deny what they have seen with their own eyes, then it is up to them to prove that our reasoning is faulty and that the phenomena are impossible after all.